morning, witches! Yay! I am on my way to have a CAT scan done of my head. Still, I am moving forward, even though if you can tell, those of you who watch me regularly, my face is still swollen from the dental surgery I had on Thursday. I had bone grafts done on my lower, both sides lower, and I had one implant put in. Basically it's like a metal screw that they put in your jawbone, and so I have stitches and everything that needs to be removed in another few days. And yeah, my mouth is still really sore. Apparently I am very sensitive as far as anything that touches my bone, because I have degenerative bone disease, and I have very, very low vitamin D, and so my bones are just very sensitive, and I have a lot of bone loss, so that kind of sucks. And yesterday I slipped a disc. I slip discs all of the time because of my bad back, and yeah, I don't have a lot of the squishy stuff that's supposed to be in between your vertebrae. Mine's like basically bone against bone. I don't have a lot of that disc stuff left, and I slip discs all the time, sometimes a couple at a time, and so right now I feel like I'm being tortured. I also get cankers every wherever they put the needle for the Novocaine. For some reason, I get cankers in all of those spots wherever they pierce my skin in my mouth. So I have about like 17 cankers in my mouth, and yeah, so today is like torture myself day. I couldn't cancel this appointment because the dentist that I go to doesn't take insurance, so I'm paying for it basically, so I better show up. So I'm doing that, and I thought an interesting topic to talk about while I am barreling down the highway would be some of the stuff that I enjoy studying is all kinds of religions. Theology in general has always been a topic that I really enjoy. When I was in college, I took the philosophy of morality. I took the philosophy of the existence of God, where the entire class we debated if we basically examined like all the different arguments for and against the existence of a higher creator being, and by the end of the class everybody was pretty much in agreement that there was that the arguments for the existence of God were more plausible than the ones against it. Same thing with morality. In the beginning of the class, people basically were leaning towards the idea that there is no morality, that morality is something that's subjective. And we argued the morality of several different issues. Oh, I'm sorry, my jaw is really hurting. And we examined the definition of morality and all that. And then by the end of the class, pretty much everybody agreed that there had to be an actual, like a morality as far as human beings go. So that was interesting. And so from the perspective of paganism and witchcraft, when you first start studying, obviously you're interested in witchcraft itself. You study all of the beliefs, the basic tenets of witchcraft and all of that, maybe different types, different offshoots of different different traditions and all of that. But once you've done that and you have that as your core, I think it's a really good idea, and it's really enjoyable to study also all the other religions and what they believe, and kind of you can do it in a comparative way, compare it to what you think and what you believe. But there can be some really interesting things that you discover. For example, recently I was looking into kind of the idea that are the gods and goddesses of like the Celtic and Greek and Roman pantheons, they all seem to have similar traits. So I kind of explored the idea, the possibility that these were actual people. Like, were they real people who were just really strong or really big or something like that? And it led me down a whole rabbit trail of finding out different things that were very interesting. The fact that around the time before any of these supposedly mythical Greek gods and goddesses or Celtic gods and goddesses were worshipped or even existed at all, it seemed like the way that people worshipped around the world was one way. When they looked at the things that were similar to pyramids around the world, including in Egypt, they worshipped the sun and the moon, and the way that the dead was buried, they were put into these underground chambers that lined up with certain times of the year, very aligned perfectly, so that during the solstices that the light would shine inside the underground, the underworld, kind of like a light and dark. The light will come and return, and it will bring with it the bounty of food and all of that. And then at some point in history, all of a sudden, everything changed. They abandoned these tombs that were set up this way, and all of a sudden, things like Stonehenge and different types of setups, the way that they were aligned now, suddenly they were aware and worshiping and aligning with the planets. And this is very interesting because at the same time, there was something that happened all around the globe that everyone could see. These balls of fire, fireballs that fell from the sky, which when they have calculated, like NASA and people that study astronomy, they have realized that about let's see, what would it have been? About 6,000 years ago, a whole bunch of comets or stars or whatever, comets I think, fell from the sky. And everywhere people saw this happening, they all fell, and they fell to Earth. So some people think that that might have been what killed off the dinosaurs, or but either way, it was some kind of a huge event that everyone saw. They said fire fell from the sky. Different parts of the world saw it from different points of view, so it may have looked somewhat different. But basically, after these bunch of comets fell from the sky and hit the Earth, the entire world started to worship differently. And around that time is when these myths or different characters in religions seemed to pop up. And if you look at the different pantheons, a lot of the characters seem similar. Like, they may use different names. You know, imagine a different language would describe, the same word as a different word. So, but the characteristics of these characters seem to have similarities across cultures. So, the possibility could be, if you look at what the Bible says, it says that around that time, which would have been like 6,000 years ago, that a third of the angels came down to the earth as well. And that they started marrying and mating with women. And then when they did this, supposedly it produced giant people instead of like a regular sized child. Because it was half deity, half human, it produced a giant, really strong, really like amazing person. So it could be that these giant people who are half angel or half deity, half human, or these men of renown, or these mighty men, or the people that we hear about in legends and myths and all of that. And I think that's a really interesting theory and an interesting topic. And I'm interested to hear if you guys think that that is a plausible thing or not. But either way, it sounds pretty cool. Oh, and if you look at like the hieroglyphics and stuff, also it talks about people coming from the sky, people coming from the men who fell from the sky. Even in Native American tradition, there is they talk about these beings or men or people or whatever they are that came from the sky to teach things. And supposedly they had really cool things to teach, like sciences. And obviously at that time, then people started to know about the planets and the solar system and all kinds of stuff they didn't know before. That's also the time when the Metal Ages began, like the Bronze Age and all of that. People started to learn how to make weapons, and some people, see, I'm going on the idea of it being the mythological gods and goddesses, deity type thing. Some people might be more leaning towards that these were alien species from the stars, that star people, because some of what you read might say, like the old ancient writings, it may say the star people, because to them it was stars that fell from the sky, and then suddenly these people were here. I don't know, what do you guys think? Fallen angels, aliens, star people. There's a lot of different beliefs out there, but if you look at all the different religions and you compare them all, you can see that there is some similarity to the whole belief system. And I kind of don't believe that the whole world could have the same delusion or the same hallucination at the same time. Maybe if it was in an isolated area, isolated group of people, you could argue that maybe they all had some collective, mental illness or something like that. But you can clearly see the changes that occurred all over the world. There was obviously something that happened, and science has shown that there was something that happened in the sky where there was comets, stars, whatever they were, that fell. And so it obviously affected the earth and the people